when you think of where we came from, you know, the old, when I was a student, you had links between stimulus and response. That was the sort of scientific approach, and then you would get crossings and so forth. That was what you can call the sort of telephone exchange theory networks. And then, of course, this lifted it into a whole sort of now the program theory. But still, and the work is extremely invaluable because we need to know some of the kinds of things that a brain would have to do in order to solve problems. But we don't really know what is meant by intuition, thinking, empathy, mind, just consciousness, awareness, experiencing, which even very, you know, when you look into the eyes of the lowest mammal, I mean, whether it's a porcupine or what, you have a feeling it's experiencing something. There's something going on. You may not have a mind as we think of it, certainly can't talk, blah, blah, but you have it's as an experiencing animal. There is something happening there which you never feel with a machine. No matter how many networks, programs, and things you add. And maybe one day, in 100 years' time, or 1,000 years' time, or whatever, somebody will say, ah, this is it. But the answer, I'm sure, will come not just with increasing the complexity of the programs, but actually increasing the programs in a given body and in something which has biological capacities which we don't yet understand. There's something about the mechanism itself, about the body itself, which moves from program to experience. And once that has been crossed, that divide, maybe we'll have some sort of theory about then how complex minds are formed. So anyway, that I said when I came here, J.G. Taylor was just about to leave. And what was so fascinating to me anyway was that the book itself indicated what a theory might look like. And there'd been a lot of speculations, a lot of sort of fairly loose accounts, but when you compared them to, say, theories in physics or so on, physics was another subject that I had to do for a while, they weren't theories. The other branch, which I sort of had cut off almost because, having been told in first year that I should either do English literature or do real science, is what I call, and this is the most, it's the other really powerful development in psychology, is what I call rhetoric. And all things like psychoanalysis and Marxist psychology and the French philosophers today like Derrida and so on. But the point about it is that they regarded psychology, they didn't admit that it was a form of rhetoric. They regarded, you could say that this, the study of rhetoric would indicate to you how psychology, how the mind was shaped. All you had to do was discover the key to the particular rhetoric which was occurring. For example, it was the Oedipus complex, or sex, or repression of this, infantile exposure to dreadful experience of people making love and so on. If you knew the key in that case, which Freud offered, was the sexual key, you could interpret the rhetoric. All the occlusions, the subversions, the denials, all of these that shaped the mind rhetorically could be understood provided you knew the key. And that was what Freud did essentially, because if you look at the maneuvers, the metaphor, the dreams, the images, and so on, you can say this has been the stuff of literature for centuries. And of course it's developed more and more. The Marxist one, the Marxist interpretation, would say you can understand virtually all the things by understanding the interests of the group to which the person belongs. Things like the kinds of prejudice and Orientalism and the kinds of stories we tell about other people, other groups, and so on, are really disguises of our desire to subordinate them. Anyway, indications of our interests. So on the one hand, you had the sexual notion, and the other, the interest cue. And since then, there have been various developments. I mean, like in games people play, it'll be enlarging perhaps the range of keys that are available to understand what is being done. But this is the kind of, when you ask people who are very gifted at interpreting what's happening in a particular exchange, they're using the rhetorical approach. They're saying, this is hidden, this is being used metaphorically, this is denied. We understand the denial, we just have to look behind it to discover what the person is trying to do. In many ways, I regret that I bought the sort of scientific vision. Looking back on it, I think the most fascinating thing in psychology really has been the study of rhetoric. And if I'd realized that it was a question of the keys, and the elucidation of the keys to the rhetoric, it would have seemed to me a more systematic thing. It would have seemed, yes, then that becomes the key issue, the main issue. You see, what are these sort of maneuvers about, and so on. Anyway, so between the two, and then when I came, so that was James and his seduction along that particular path.